The Miami Dolphins' 2024 season is one that will linger in the minds of fans, but not for the reasons anyone hoped. There's a weight to this season, a mix of unfulfilled promise and raw frustration that's hard to shake. The playoff miss is the headline, sure, but when you peel back the layers, the story gets much more complicated. Injuries? A brutal 6-game absence for Tua Tagovailoa is an unavoidable elephant in the room. But here's the part that cuts deeper: this wasn't a bad team. Not even close. The defense? It was spectacular. The offense? At its best, electric. And yet, here we are, looking back at what could have been instead of celebrating what was. The defense was nothing short of incredible. It's almost jarring to think about how good they were, finishing 4th in total yards allowed and 10th in scoring. That doesn't happen by accident. This was a unit that came to play, week in and week out, and delivered performances that should have propelled the team into January football. But as the story so often goes with Miami, even historic efforts on one side of the ball weren't enough to mask the cracks on the other. It's worth repeating just how rare this kind of defensive dominance has been for the Dolphins. The last time Miami finished in the top 10 in both total yards and points allowed was in 2006. That's an 18-year drought, finally broken, and for what? To end up on the outside of the playoff picture, again. If that doesn't make you want to scream into the void, what does? Across the franchise's 55 seasons, this kind of performance has only happened 15 times. And here we are, watching it go to waste. What makes this sting even more is the sense of déjà vu. This isn't the first time Miami's defense has been this good and still come up short. Look at 2002, 2003, 2006, and now 2024. What ties those seasons together? Top 10 defenses that didn't lead to playoff football. And in every single one of those years, the starting quarterback missed significant time. In 2002 and 2003, it was Jay Fiedler. In 2006, Dante Culpepper barely made it past week 4. And now, Tua, gone for 6 games in a season that needed him every step of the way. It's a pattern that's almost impossible to ignore, and it's maddening. Because the thing is, the defense gave this team chances, so many chances. They held strong in games that could have easily slipped away. They made stops when they needed to. But what they couldn't do was carry the entire weight of a team that, without Tua, lost its spark. And no defense, no matter how good, can win games alone. That's the reality, and it's one Miami fans know all too well. It gets even more frustrating when you look at the rest of the league. Miami was one of 6 teams this year to finish in the top 10 in both defensive points and yards. The other 5, Philadelphia, Green Bay, Denver, Kansas City, and Baltimore, all made the playoffs. All of them. Miami was the outlier. The defense held its own, but when the offense needed to step up in those crucial moments, it faltered. And you can't help but wonder how different things might have been if Tua had been there for those 6 games. Would it have been enough to flip a couple of losses into wins? Would it have been enough to save the season? It's the kind of question that keeps fans up at night. On the other side of the ball, the offense was a story of extremes. When Tua was on the field, this team was explosive. They finished 1st in total yards and 2nd in scoring, numbers that would make any franchise proud. But the highs only make the lows hit harder. Without Tua, the offense felt lost, unable to find the rhythm and spark that made them so dangerous. And the inconsistency was glaring. One week, they looked unstoppable, the next, they struggled to move the ball. It was a roller coaster, and not the fun kind. What really twists the knife is how long it's been since Miami had an offense this productive. The last time they finished in the top 10 in both scoring and yards was in 1995, Don Shula's final year. Think about that. Nearly 3 decades of waiting for an offense that could light up the scoreboard, and when it finally happens, it's wasted. It's the kind of thing that makes you want to pull your hair out. And then there's the history. In the early 70s, this franchise set the standard. Top 10 finishes on both offense and defense, Super Bowl runs, and a team that delivered in the biggest moments. That was the identity of the Miami Dolphins, the gold standard. Now, it feels like they're constantly chasing ghosts, trying to live up to a legacy that feels further away with each passing year. So what now? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you take a season like this and make sure it doesn't happen again? Is it about finding a better backup quarterback? Is it about rethinking the offensive scheme to make it less reliant on one player? Or is it about something deeper, something more fundamental? These are the questions the team will have to answer in the months ahead, and there's no easy fix.